Hi, I'm Jess,
Hi, I'm Kristen.
and this is ReDIScover, a conversation where we travel through everything that makes up the essence of who we are and how to live authentically and imaginatively.
Here, we invite you to join us as we explore and discuss a little bit of, well, everything.
From Disney to cultivating your most authentic life to deepening your relationships and talking about the real stuff.
We hope you'll find this a space that speaks to you, encourages you, and brings a little bit of magic into your day.
Hi there, I'm Jess,
Hi, I'm Kristen.
and welcome back to this week's episode of ReDIScover. This is our official fall episode dedicated to the most gorgeous season of them all.
On today's episode, we wanted to talk about fall being the season of the senses. So we are going to run down every one of the 5 senses and how you can experience autumn through each of them.
We're hoping that this episode will inspire you to get into the fall spirit and think of some new activities to do and ways to add some comfort and coziness into your season. All right, just a quick review. There are 5 senses: taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight.
Thanks, Figment.
We'll get started with taste because that means we get to eat. One of the first things I think of when I think of some delicious fall tastes is, of course, pumpkin.
And no, we're not just talking about that favorite from Starbucks, the pumpkin spice latte.
You can do all sorts of baking with different pumpkin spices and flavors, and you can make pretty much pumpkin everything, whether you want to make cookies or pancakes or muffins or breads.
I think one of the best places you can go for inspiration this time of year is the cult favorite grocery store, Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's really seems to pull out all the stops this time of year and has everything from pumpkin-shaped pasta to pumpkin pasta sauce, pumpkin pancake mix. They really, really get into the spirit. They seem to really understand us.
It's a whole experience in itself. It's like a theme park in a grocery store.
We're actually filming this episode live inside of a Trader Joe's.
I wish. There is also the other wonderful flavor of the season, which is apple. Anything from apple cider to apple pie to apple donuts. There's a little bit of everything. I went apple picking this past weekend. After taking home some apples, we were able to make an apple pie at home. I found Cortland apples seem to be the best for baking, if you were wondering. I think that's just a really fun and all-encapsulating fall experience. It's like a 2-part event. You go out and you pick them, and then you take them home and bake them, and it's the freshest apple pie you'll ever taste.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for like having equity in what you make. Like you actually went out and did the work to get those apples. We associate pumpkin and apple with fall, but both of those flavors are so well complemented by cinnamon. When you think of cinnamon, you could be thinking of a warm, cozy chai latte or cinnamon sugar donuts. I think one of the most fun things about fall is going to an apple cider mill, and I know being in upstate New York for this season, Jess and I have the advantage of doing the apple picking and going to the apple cider mill. But just know that no matter where you are in the country, you can find apple cider that comes from upstate New York. I actually was able to find the apple cider from my local cider mill here when I was living in Orlando at Target. So
Wow.
yeah, so you can find it. But one of the most fun things about going to the cider mill is you can kind of see where they press the apples and make apple cider. They make apple cider donuts fresh every day. There's just kind of this fall feel in the air and everyone's excited, and the line's really long on weekends because everyone wants to get a dozen donuts or a pie to celebrate with their family. And I like to take the cider home and warm it up with some of that cinnamon and those spices and have hot cider.
Do you use the cinnamon sticks?
I use the cinnamon sticks, and you can actually use like apple pie spice is an actual spice blend you can use. So I think that just like amps it up even more.
I can't think of a better fall drink than apple cider, honestly. It beats pumpkin spice lattes for me by a long shot.
I was going to ask, are you apple or pumpkin if you had to choose?
I think I would pick apple out of the two. I could eat a lot more apple than I could pumpkin, I think.
I think I agree. I love a pumpkin spice latte, but I think apple pie, apple cider, these were like the flavors of our childhood. Even though they're very quintessential for this area and this time of year. You can find them everywhere. And I think if you live in a climate that doesn't experience fall like we do here, you can still find a way to make your own experience.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about the taste sense, particularly when it comes to fall. You'll have that fall experience because the tastes kind of bring back that nostalgic feel that you remembered from when you were a child.
And Trader Joe's and Starbucks are everywhere. So you can always go get those fall ingredients at Trader Joe's or a good pumpkin spice latte at your local Starbucks.
And there is something to be said about Dunkin' Donuts pumpkin iced coffee, too. It is pretty good.
I always forget about Dunkin' Donuts because we don't have a lot of them around here, but in Florida, they're everywhere. So.
Yeah, but that actually is my favorite pumpkin iced coffee, which I know is controversial, but listen, I can't drink very much caffeine, so let me have this one.
Let her have it.
There's one other cookie that's really important to me during this time of year, and it's the Pillsbury cookies with the pumpkins and the ghosts printed on them that you just kind of pick apart and put on the sheet and you bake them, and they're the most perfect little sugar cookie.
I know you're not supposed to do this, but I prefer eating them as cookie dough than when I bake them. I like them warm when they're right out of the oven, but I don't know. I can't resist like taking the cookie dough out of the package and just eating one.
Admittedly, it is so good, but do that at your own risk.
Yes. Moving on to our next sense, which is touch.
I think the first one that came to mind for both of us was just playing in the leaves or touching the fall leaves. There's just such a beautiful thing about them all falling to the ground. You can pick them up and just feel the dew on them, and they're just so beautiful.
Did you ever press them in books?
We actually ironed them in wax paper in between those, but yeah, pressing them in books is another way you
can kind of preserve those fall colors all year round. So no one is ever too old to play in the leaves. Also, like Jess mentioned, going apple picking and then just feeling the cooler air too. Even in climates that don't experience a severe season change, you can still feel it in the air when there is like a little bit of a shift, and it's exciting.
It's just crisp, I think, is the best word I can use to describe it. The other thing we would like to touch on for touch is carving or painting pumpkins. So this is, of course, a Halloween tradition. I have found like Disney shapes to carve out of pumpkins before, which actually turned out pretty good.
I think those are great for kids too, and they're very safe. They're not like super sharp or anything. I think definitely adult supervision.
Yes, and I think a really cool thing about carving pumpkins, which could also go in the taste category, is you can actually bake the pumpkin seeds that you take out of the pumpkins. Another option is if you don't want to use a knife and you don't want to cut up your pumpkin, you can actually paint on pumpkins, which is something I've done before.
Well, speaking of baking pumpkin seeds and all the pumpkin things, I think you can't have a conversation about all the senses of fall without talking about smell. We talked about the outside air feeling crisp and cool, but I think that the leaves falling off the trees really do lend a distinctive smell to the air. It smells almost like a sort of renewal. Like the air is crisp and almost like cleaner to breathe somehow. You can kind of feel yourself getting like a really good breath, and it almost feels like the first time in a while that you've been able to do that.
It reminds me of that one quote that goes, "Autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go." Like you said, a sense of renewal.
A less natural but equally delightful way to experience the smells of fall are through candles and essential oils.
I found the pumpkin apple scent from Yankee Candle has been one of my favorites this year.
I know everyone loves the Bath and Body Works, like the 3-wick candles. I think I had some favorites. I think there was like one called the Perfect Autumn. There was definitely a cinnamon pumpkin apple one or something like that.
And anything apple, like that crisp apple smell, is divine.
They really seem to nail creating that scent. For me, I like to diffuse an essential oils blend to make my apartment smell like autumn. I use Young Living oils, and I love the combination of their cinnamon bark oil, like a little cinnamon, a little nutmeg, because those are a little stronger, and then some clove and orange oil. And it just smells like, honestly, it could transition really well into the Christmas season. It just smells like you've been baking all day and like something really wonderful is about to show up.
It makes you feel happy to be at home when it's chilly outside. And it's just dreamy. I love it.
And I think this year especially, if we can all find ways to feel excited to be home and excited to be cozy, then that's great. But I think the best way to infuse your home with those smells is by actually baking.
Absolutely.
Nothing beats the smell of some pumpkin bread or an apple pie, and that smell just fills your home. And because the oven's on, it also warms your home. So when people come over, they just walk into your home and they're like, wow, what are you making? It just is so welcoming, I think. Did your home smell really good when you made your apple pie the other day?
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say that I have never made a pie before. After going apple picking, we were inspired by other people talking about how they wanted to bake an apple pie. So I looked up a recipe on Pinterest and followed it, and it actually turned out really well. So I feel very accomplished from this pie.
Our next sense of fall is sound. One of my favorite sounds that I associate with summer, but also with fall, is the sound of a crackling fire. So I did a lot of camping as a kid, and we would camp well into the fall season. Our last official big trip of the year would be Columbus Day weekend, and I just love the cozy, comforting sound of a crackling fire. And I know not everyone can go camping and not everyone can have outdoor bonfires, but even if you don't have a fireplace or a bonfire pit, you can find videos on YouTube and Netflix, and even Disney Plus has an Arendelle themed one that is just a continuous loop of a crackling fireplace. And some of them are like 12 hours long. So I'll like fall asleep to them at night sometimes. And it's just kind of, it's not quite the same, but it still lends that same comforting sound.
Another fall sound I can think of is just walking through the fields or on the sidewalk or in your yard and stepping on the crunchy leaves. That's something that you don't really get at other times of the year. My dad would rake leaves into a big pile that we would jump in as kids. So just that sound sparked so much excitement in all of us.
Aside from the more natural sounds of fall, we associate a lot of music with this season. I think it's a very transitional, reflective season, and we have some favorite artists and albums to listen to in the fall.
If you are a Swiftie, aka a Taylor Swift fan, you know that the Red album is well known to be the most fall album. I also think that Folklore, her newest album, has some fall vibes as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then also this year I've been getting into James Taylor quite a lot, and I just think that his whole vibe of being so peaceful and relaxing, I've just been playing it while driving around in New York while it is so fall outside and there's so many colored leaves, and it just makes me feel this sense of peace that is needed, I think, during this season.
Yeah, I think I associate like Mumford & Sons and Jack Johnson with that same kind of feeling of just like peaceful and easy. I also really love bluegrass music this time of year. I love bluegrass music in general. I think I like more like country music in the summer specifically, and not really at any other time of the year. And in the autumn, I just really love bluegrass music.
Another genre of music we've found that we love this year is actually jazz music. And
oh yeah,
I mean, I love jazz music at all times of the year, but we searched autumn jazz playlist on Spotify and just put it in the background when we're baking or driving or whatever, and it's so relaxing.
So we're going to need to put that playlist in the show notes because I also want access to that playlist too.
Sounds good. I will get it and we'll link it in the show notes for you.
We have covered taste, touch, smell, and sound, but there's one extremely important sense left, and that is sight.
The first ones that come to mind for me, the most quintessential, are doing a corn maze or a hayride. So a lot of places have these opportunities where you can usually do them together at sort of like a fall festival or a pumpkin patch or a farm. I do remember in Florida when I lived down there, I had to drive quite a ways, but they did have some. So definitely utilize Google. And then hayrides are just so much fun. The one we went on just now took you in this gorgeous field surrounded by all of these trees that were in their prime of changing color. And the air was so crisp, and it was just such a beautiful fall experience. I absolutely loved it.
When we would go camping, they would do nightly hay rides with us. Just a lot of fun memories surrounding that. I think something that everyone associates with this time of year is the beginning of football season. And I think we're all very happy that there is a football season this year, though it might look a little different. We, obviously being from Western New York, are Buffalo Bills fans.
Go Bills! Bills fans are like none other. Buffalo gets really, really into it. Like you were saying how you went to the cider mill and the line was so long, but then once the Bills game started, the line got so short.
It was deserted. Another fun way to celebrate fall and Halloween is by cozying up on the couch with some fuzzy socks and maybe some hot apple cider and watching your favorite fall or Halloween movie. Jess, do you have any favorites?
My top favorite is It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Aww.
And I am not a scary movie person whatsoever.
I think we're both alike in that way. I'm not really a huge scary movie person either. I would never choose to watch a scary movie as opposed to a cute Halloween movie. So I think I also grew up loving The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I loved Hocus Pocus as a kid. I think that's a great one. Halloween Town is another.
Casper the Friendly Ghost. I want to watch Ghostbusters this year. I haven't seen it, which I know is shocking. Across the board, from what I can tell on Twitter and things, is that Gilmore Girls is one of the most fall associated TV shows of all time.
I think it's because Stars Hollow is like the ideal place to spend autumn. For sure.
It's so picturesque.
I think I associate autumn with a lot of Nora Ephron movies. Like I always want to watch Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail during this time of year. And also, for a couple of years, but this year especially, a new season of The Great British Bake Off is on Netflix. They're releasing a new episode every week. And this year is really interesting because they actually filmed it during the pandemic. All of these contestants and the hosts and judges quarantined and kind of went to live in this pod so that they would be able to film the show without masks or anything and like kind of make it as normal as possible.
Another thing is, of course, the transition into fall fashion. Admittedly has been a challenge for me to learn how to dress more for cooler weathers after living in Florida. I love sweaters. I love flannels. I love leggings. So being able to wear all of those again on a regular basis actually is quite comfy.
I think everyone thinks of the ideal like fall fashion as like something you could probably get away with when it's like 50, 60 degrees, but it dips pretty cold here at night. And as the season goes on, it will start getting into like the 30s, 40s. So we definitely need to layer up around here. I have a few like favorite pieces. I have these orange pants that I love. They have like buttons on the sides. They kind of look like sailor pants, but they're so fun. I have this like foresty green giant cardigan that I love to just wrap myself in. And of course, my Buffalo Bills pom-pom beanie.
I think that some fall colors particularly tend to be mustard yellow or the dark red, like a maroon. You know, I love that color so much. I dyed my hair that color this year. It's just a whole color palette you can play with, explore, and have fun putting different pieces together.
Another way to see the sights of fall is to go on a hike. And this can kind of be a way to see all the changing leaves and the trees, that get some fresh air, get some exercise. I think going for a hike is a really good way to center yourself and see the leaves at the same time.
I have been doing a ton of hiking this fall, and I think some of my favorite places that I've gone that are within driving distance of the area. Number one place was Watkins Glen, near the Finger Lakes, near Seneca Lake. Allegheny State Park is a really great one. That was a childhood favorite of our families. And then also Letchworth State Park, which is just stunning. Gorgeous. In the fall. If you're ever in the Western New York area in the fall, or if you live here and are just looking for some inspiration, those I think are my top 3 favorite places to go.
And I know we've mentioned a lot of quintessentially fall things that have a lot to do with living somewhere that experiences the fullness of this season, but we also spent a lot of time living somewhere where fall doesn't show itself so prominently. So We know that there are a lot of ways to get into the fall spirit because we've had to get creative in years past. I know that Celebration has a pumpkin patch you can go to that's really fun. And a lot of places are just a short drive away. Again, like Jess said, using Google as your guide and just kind of typing in like best fall things to do in whatever town or city. And you'll get lots of options. Although many people might not be trick-or-treating this year and the Halloween parties and Halloween Horror Nights are canceled, have your own Halloween party. You can do a pumpkin carving contest. You can have kind of a modified version of trick-or-treating, like a candy scavenger hunt. I know my church is doing something called trunk or treating, and basically everyone's going to park their cars in like the parking lot, and they're going to have like a little trunk or treat for the kids to go around to each car. You can still dress up.
I like the pun.
Yeah, it's a good pun. I think Mater coined it first in Carsland, but
True.
They may have borrowed it from him. So if you are looking for something to do with your adult friends or for a fun date, I think a fun thing that Jess and I both love doing is going to a brewery or a vineyard. You can find these locally, especially breweries. Vineyards are a little trickier depending where you live. Even places where there are not, there's often a local distillery or brewery that you can visit.
Again, for those Western New Yorkers, we'll just give a plug because this is our personal experience, but there are amazing places up here in Ellicottville. They have the Ellicottville Brewing Company, and they are famous for their Ellicottville blueberry beer. Again, going to the Finger Lakes, they had hundreds of vineyards you could go to, and the Two Goats Brewery in Finger Lakes, phenomenal. So you can look those up if you're in the area. If not, again, do a Google search. Explore your own backyard because there are so many places. Again, for the fall, a lot of them have fall-specific flavors. Mm-hmm. So,
all right, I think we've covered all the senses of fall. We've got taste, we've got touch, we've got smell, sound, and sight. We have things to do in our backyard, in your backyard, wherever you are.
We hope that you can take a few things from our episode today and incorporate them into your own fall traditions.
Remember, even though 2020 is a little strange and atypical, it can still be #cozy2020.
Exactly. And you cultivate the feeling of fall from within you.
That was so sweet. It's true, though, that cozy warmth and desire to be at home surrounded by loved ones and things that make you feel comforted is what this season is all about. And that's kind of what 2020 is all about. So really, it's the perfect year to dive into all things fall. So we hope you delight all 5 of your senses with this season.
And I hope you guys have a very happy and safe Halloween.
Ooh. Bye.
Talk to you next week. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of ReDIScover.
Please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening. Your reviews are what keep us going, and we'd love to hear from you.
Join us every Tuesday for a new conversation, and let us know what you think we should talk about next.
Follow us on Instagram at positively.kristen and at jessicafay508. And check out Jess's blog at theroadjesstraveled with 1l.com.
Until next time,
stay frumpy.